Hello and good morning. So we are into week 10 of the Photoshoot prep. So I've got 9 weeks left and it's time to start pushing. I'm around £22 down now. I've just messaged my coach this morning to talk about the fact that my body weight hasn't really moved for a week or so. And I think the reason that it's not moved potentially is because last week I wasn't feeling very good. And I dropped my food all the way down to like my rest day food, so 2,000 calories, which for somebody of my body weight is pretty low. Like nothing crazy, but it's pretty low. And then I didn't train all last week, so I wasn't really carrying any inflammation from training. Wasn't sore or anything, obviously. So body weight just dropped by about, I think it was £5 last week or something. It's then come back up as I've started to train again and eat a little bit more food. Obviously, I've had a couple more days this week where food's been a little bit higher, but then it's come pretty much back down to where it was. So we're going to have a little bit of a discussion. I'm still waiting for just double check my WhatsApp. Yeah, he's still not replied. And he's normally very good for replies, by the way, if you're watching this and you're considering him for coaching. But we'll have a little bit of a discussion around that, I would imagine, a little bit later on today, because it's not really like an urgent matter or anything. It's not going to change anything that I do today. But as I said, I think it's just the fact that obviously food's been a lot higher this week because I've been back on my training day food, and then I've been training legs, and then I've obviously, I'm a little bit sore on the legs and the upper body, so I'm a little bit inflamed. So I think that's all it is, but we'll see what he says. As I said, we've got 9 weeks to push. I imagine over the next few weeks, food's going to get dropped again. Cardio is probably going to go up. And I also have like a little trip away to the lakes at the weekend. Not this weekend coming, but the one after. So just see what he says about that, because that will be a little diet break. So I'd like to push up until then if I need to. But today I'm going to take you through, obviously, like my kind of day today. And then I will take you through essentially why the scales don't move for you sometimes, and how we can avoid not just like the panic of the scales not moving and not be so reactive to it, but also the reasons why the scales might not moving so much. Because I think for a lot of people, you'll see that the weight's not really moving for a couple of days. I've actually just had this with a client last week. Weight hadn't really moved that much for a week. It moved by about half a kilo. Now this particular client is 100 kilos or just over, so we're looking to drop 1% of body weight per week instead of 0.5%, and I'll tell you exactly how I fixed it. And now he's dropped, I think it's like 1.5 kilos in the space of 3 or 4 days. So it's a super common thing that a lot of people struggle with when it comes to fat loss, and it can, as I said, make people very reactive, and it can get in people's heads massively, and it causes a lot of people to essentially just fuck the entire plan off and throw everything out the window a lot of the time. So we're going to have a little look at how we can handle that, and I'll see you in the next clip. Right, so number one, the reason why you keep on losing and gaining the same weight is because you see your fat loss and the habits that you instill while doing that as a finish line, essentially. Now, should we be aiming to lose fat forever? No. Am I a big advocate for aggressive fat loss and getting in and out very quickly? Yes, I am. But if you start to live a healthier lifestyle in terms of training consistently, getting loads of steps and activity in, getting yourself outside and going for walks like I'm doing right now, eating loads of nutrient dense foods like fruits and vegetables and meats and all the rest of the good stuff. If you see that as something that you should only be doing during a fat loss phase, well then it's absolutely no wonder why you keep on losing and gaining the same weight. Because no, we shouldn't be doing it as aggressively as we do when we're in a fat loss phase. Obviously, now if you drop your calories to well below your maintenance and you start doing a shit ton of steps and you're doing cardio and you've got your weight training sessions in and you're restricted on social occasions for a period of time, like, no, we shouldn't be doing that forever, and it shouldn't have to be done forever, because ultimately we want to get to where we want to be in terms of fat loss, and then we bring our calories back up to maintenance or even back into a slight surplus, and then we start focusing on having more social occasions, building more muscle, enjoying life a little bit more. And if you put all these habits in suddenly, so if you start working with a coach, for an example, and you get yourself to this certain point where you've instilled all these habits, and then as soon as the fat loss phase is over, you just stop doing like 80% of them. Like, you might keep on going to the gym a couple of times a week, but you've stopped making an effort to actively go out and, you know, continue to do walks, and you've stopped eating as much fruit and vegetables, and you've just kind of started eating whatever the fuck you want. Well then, yeah, then of course you're going to gain the weight back pretty quickly. So this is why it's really important to actually have a reversal plan. Now, one of the things I'll do with all of my clients is we will get them to where they need to be, and then we'll bring them back up to probably just below where we think maintenance might be, see where body weight goes over a week or two, and then every time the body weight either starts to drop a little bit or stays the same for a little bit too long, we might just put it up by about another 200 calories or so. And that's when we start to have more social occasions and start to continue to hold ourselves accountable post fat loss phase, to make sure that we keep the habits in place. Because I was like, eating fruits and vegetables and good quality foods isn't something that we should just be doing for fat loss. It's something that we should be doing every single day for overall health. Getting yourself outside and getting sunlight in, like I'm doing right now, is something that I will always continue to do indefinitely. Like, these habits, while they shouldn't always be quite as aggressive as they are when you're cutting, they should always be there in some form of way, because they're just incredibly good for you. So this is why I'm a big advocate for bringing in all these habits in fat loss, and making sure that fat loss is essentially you know, something that happens because of all the habits, and not the habits are in because of fat loss, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to go through tip number 2 now for why you keep on losing and dropping, or losing and gaining the same weight. Now, tip number 2 is probably just as important as tip number 1. Tip number 1 is incredibly important, okay? But this one here is something that a lot of people will miss out on. Now, when it comes to actually starting a fat loss phase, or any sort of really fitness goal, whether that's, again, you're starting to run a marathon, or you want to fucking drop 20 kilos and get in photoshoot shape, or if you just want to drop a couple of kilos and feel a bit better in your clothes, or whatever it might be, you need to get incredibly clear before you start working towards this goal on what is actually required for you to get to that goal. And also, a really, really important part of that is what is required for you to give up. Like, what do you sometimes have to say no to in order to get to that goal? Now, if we are, again, just losing, let's say, for an example, 5 to 10 kilos, and you just want to feel a little bit better in your work clothes, and you just kind of want to walk around, a little bit of a leaner face and all the rest of it, be a little bit healthier, be a bit stronger in the gym, you can probably be really flexible with that approach, right? Depending on how quickly you want to do that. Now, if you're trying to get really lean, let's say for an example, for a holiday or a photo shoot or whatever it might be, and you want to see like shredded visible abs, like if that's where you want to get to, well, then you're probably going to have to say no to a lot of social occasions. You're probably going to have to say no to, everybody loves the fucking I have to have a sweet treat every day thing at the minute. Like, you're probably going to have to say no to those most of the time. You're going to have to say no to go out and getting pissed with your mates. You're probably going to have to say no to like long weekends away where you're drinking 3 or 4 days in a row. Because if you want to work to a more of an extreme goal, you have to be more extreme in terms of the things that you give up and the things that you do to get there. You can't have an extreme outcome without having extreme habits and an extreme lifestyle, essentially. If you want a result that's pretty attainable for 99% of people, well, then you're probably just going to have to, you can probably live the life that 99% of people want to live. But the point being is, before you go into this, you need to get really clear on, 1, exactly how extreme your goal is, and 2, the more the extreme the goal is, the more that you're going to have to give up and the more effort that you're going to have to put in. It's as simple as that. And I think the issue is, a lot of people will say that they want to get abs, or they want to get in really good shape for the holiday, or they want to do a photo shoot, or they want to do this, or they want to do that. But then the humming and hawing every weekend about whether they should go out on the piss with the mates, or whether they should just treat themselves because they've dropped that pound or 2. And this is genuinely the reason why most people don't even ever complete a fat loss phase. They might set themselves out like a 12-week fat loss phase or a 16-week. And by the way, this little 12 to 16-week thing will lead me into my next part of the video. But a lot of people will not have that sort of mentality of, right, I need to give up X, Y, and Z to be able to get there. So that, like I said, when it actually comes to making those decisions on a week-to-week and a day-to-day basis, it causes a lot of decision fatigue, and it causes people a lot of stress, because people just start fucking losing their head over it. Like, oh, and I don't know if I'm over-restricting, I don't know if and I feel like I shouldn't, like, if you knew the requirements of what was needed to get there in the first place, you wouldn't even be having these fucking problems. So for an example, right, I'm working towards a pretty extreme goal. I am 9 weeks into my fat loss phase, and I've just dropped like bang on 25 pounds this morning. So I'm dropping on average around 2.5 pounds a week, which is just over a kilo a week, right? that's a lot of body weight. Now I've had to say no to going out drinking with my mates. I've had to say no to going out to meals and things. I've had to say no to going for weekends away. I've had these opportunities to do these things over the last 9 weeks. Normally I've got a really fucking boring social life, but all of a sudden everybody's doing something. It always feels that way when you're in a fat loss phase. But the point being is, I know that I have to say no to a lot of these things to get to where I want to be. I knew that before I started. This is a 20-week prep. Like, I knew that this was going to be difficult. I knew that I was going to have to be pretty unsociable for 20 weeks. Now, am I okay with that? Yeah. Do I still want to, do I still have the tendency to want to go out and do these things? Yes. Does my brain go, oh, but you can just go out and have a couple, you can just do that? Yes, it does. But I still know consciously that I have to do these things, or I have to say no to certain things to get to the goal that I want to be. And I'm okay with that, because I made that decision when I committed to doing this prep. Like, I said that I was going to commit to this, so I'm going to commit to it. But as I said, like, a lot of yous don't have this sort of like roadmap or requirement of what's needed to be given up, and that's why a lot of people end up getting a lot of decision fatigue, end up fucking throwing the toys out the pram, and then end up just giving in. Essentially, that's such a common thing to happen for a lot of people. Another one. So tip number 3 would be not having a clear roadmap of exactly how it is that you're going to get to where you want to be. So I've just previously mentioned the 8, 12, 16-week fat loss phase. Now, every single one of my clients that comes to work with me all get an incredibly clear roadmap of exactly how we're going to get there. If it's more like a longer fat loss phase, like if somebody's a bit overweight, we might do, a 6 to 12 months fat loss phase. But really, really, really important distinction when I say that is, it's not just one continuous fat loss phase. Having your diet breaks in there, having your scheduled off plans in there, having social occasions already in there, like weeks or months ahead, so that we know that they're coming and we can pre-plan for them. Having an actual set amount of time that we're going to be aiming to lose body fat is a really, really important part of this, right? I can't stress enough how important that is. Now, yes, you want to take a lot of these habits and put it into a, maintain it with your lifestyle. But this is one of the problems I have with a lot of these like sustainable fat loss coaches, have a sweet treat every day sort of people. Like the fucking all vibes, no results kind of crew for a lot of them, right? Because people are too scared to hold you accountable and are terrified of telling you that you have to give some things up in order to get to where you want to be. These are the same people that, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but these are the same people that will brag about doing 15-hour work days and train twice a day, but tell you that you have to live a sustainable lifestyle and you shouldn't be living unbalanced, when they do it their fucking selves. The only difference is they have a sweet treat every day. That's the only difference. As soon as it comes to talking about food, we're suddenly not allowed to talk about restriction and giving things up anymore. When it comes to your time and spending time with the family and seeing your friends and seeing your family and prioritizing sleep and things, these people don't seem to have an issue with giving up any of that. But when it comes to food, oh god, no, you've got to have, if you want a croissant, you've got to go and buy a fucking croissant. Like, anyways, I'm going to go back to the point that I was making, because that was just a little bit of a rant from me. But when it comes to actually setting out your phases, right, and setting out your goal, you need to have some form of actual structure. Because let's say, for an example, right, you want to lose 10 kilos. Now, depending on your body weight, right, we should always be aiming to lose, in a slightly more aggressive fat loss phase, roughly 1% of our body weight per week. Now, if we're aiming to lose 1% of our body weight per week, that is quite a decent amount of weight. Like, I'm doing that myself right now, but again, like, I've got a lot of experience doing this, so I can handle this pretty well. For most people that haven't lost body fat successfully, that's going to be quite a hard task for them to do over the course of 16 weeks consistently with no breaks. So what we do is we commit to having a certain period of time where we actually drop body fat. Let's say 16 weeks, right? For most people, round about 8 to 10 weeks, you're going to need some form of diet break. Why is a diet break so important? A diet break is so important because, one, it gives us the opportunity to have more food and potentially go out and have some social occasions and bring our energy back up and kind of get rid of that hunger potentially as well. Okay, it's going to help upregulate our hormones, and it's also, most importantly, going to just give us that mental break from being in a deficit constantly. You're going to get stronger, you're going to feel fuller, you probably dial it back on training this week a little bit in terms of half the amount of sets that you're doing, but keeping intensity a little bit high. That's going to massively reduce stress, and then by the end of that week, you're going to be desperate to get yourself back in a deficit. But the point being is, like, for an example, if we have this scheduled in for, like, let's say 10 weeks time, right, and you've got a 16-week fat loss phase. Now, if you're 7 to 8 weeks in and you're starting to get a little bit hungry and you're starting to get a little bit tired and you want a little bit more food, that you have this, 2 weeks left to push, and then you get a week more of extra food. And then from there, you're going to be able to enjoy that a little bit more. It's going to bring down that diet fatigue a little bit. And then you're going to be able to push on really hard for the last 6 weeks. I'm going away to the lakes this Friday. I'm going to have a diet break this weekend. And the only thing that's really kept me going over the last few weeks is knowing that I've got this diet break coming up. I'm going to be able to enjoy social occasions, and I'm going to be able to enjoy food a little bit more when in a fat loss phase, because it can be done. You can enjoy foods that you can have foods that you enjoy when you're in a fat loss phase if it's structured correctly. People will say you can, or some people will say that you can't. It's a fucking grey area. If you do it properly, you absolutely can do it. I am living, breathing proof of this. You all watched that fucking donut video from last week, right? You saw the foods that I ate and still drop body weight. It can be done as long as you do it properly, okay? So that's my third one, is actually schedule in the times that you're going to have your diet breaks, have a set amount of time for your fat loss phase, because otherwise you don't really feel like there's ever a finish line for the aggressive fat loss. I know I said that you shouldn't be viewing fat loss as a finish line, but by that I mean the habits. If you don't have an actual timeline, you won't have a clue when this fat loss phase is going to end. And you won't have a clue when the deficit's going to end, and that's super fucking unmotivating and really daunting for a lot of people. So make sure that you plan in your diet breaks, make sure that you have an actual set amount of time to go for. Or you can just get a coach like me to do it for you. Okay? Link in bio. But yeah, that's it, guys, for this video. 3 simple tips, 3 reasons why you keep on gaining and losing the same amount of weight. I'll see you in the next one.